Welcome friends to the 2022 Audi Q5 review. This is the Prestige model, so it's fully decked out with all the options and its stickers for around $58,000 the way that you see it here. But don't worry, I'm going to talk about the other models because in my opinion, I don't really think you need to get the Prestige. I think the Premium Plus models will do most people just fine. For right now, let's get into what's new for 2022/2023, and then we can go into the exterior, the drive, the interior, and then we can conclude. All right, for 2022, they made the S-Line appearance package standard for all the Q5s. They gave you a new 18-inch wheel design. The other change was for the plug-in hybrids, which they denote as the 55 model. They gave you sports seats as standard. Now for 2023, what they are offering you is the adaptive cruise control. That's going to be standard for all models of the Q5. And also the Premium Plus models will get the Bang & Olufsen sound system as standard. But everything else pretty much remains the same. Oh, and I think the plug-in hybrid gets OLED taillights now as standard. Now talking about the exterior, yeah, it's getting a little long in the tooth now. I do want them to redesign this car, but I have to admit, this design, this style, it is growing on me. I think it's pretty clean and elegant, especially when you get it in white with the black optics package. I really do appreciate it. I think it's a clean looking vehicle, but you let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. My only gripe is, even though this car has 20-inch wheels on it, they don't look like they're 20s. They look smaller. They look like they're either 18s or 19s. So you can probably get away with the smaller wheels if you wanted to, because that would help with the ride quality, not by much because this car already rides pretty amazing. So with all that established, let's just get into the driving segment now, because that's what really impressed me with this Q5 in my 1 week of testing it for you. This is the 45 trim level, okay? There was apparently a 40 trim level as well. That's just their way of differentiating the engine options. The 40 trim level is essentially a detuned version of this 45 drivetrain. They're still 2-liter, 4-cylinder, turbocharged engines. It's just that the 40 model just made a little bit less horsepower and torque. I tested out an Audi A4 in both the 40 trim level and the 45. I have to admit, there was absolutely no difference in the way both of those vehicles pulled. They felt identical, I kid you not. If you just happen to find an Audi Q5 on a dealership lot and it happens to be a 40, then I'll be honest, there's not a huge difference in the way that these vehicles pull. But if you have a choice, I would go with the 45 simply because it'll be more desirable when you go to resell it, I suppose. And the way you see it here, we have here 261 horsepower and 273 pounds-feet of torque. Every model of the Q5s, whether you get this 45, the 55 plug-in, or the SQ5, premium fuel is required for all models. I believe the SQ5, which I've also tested, and I will leave a link to that in the description box, that made around 349 horsepower, 369 pounds-feet of torque. The plug-in hybrid apparently has a little bit more horsepower than that. I believe it's 362 horsepower and the same 369 pounds-feet of torque. And when Car and Driver tested all of these Q5s, this 45 model regular Q5 did 0 to 60 in around 5.5 seconds. The plug-in variant did 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, which was 0.3 seconds quicker than the SQ5 in their testing, which is pretty shocking. But don't get me wrong, I would still go with the SQ5 if you want to have fun and you want character, because the SQ5 is the only model to come with a 3-liter V6 engine that's turbocharged, and I love the way it cracks and bangs and pops. It's pretty excellent. But yeah, I appreciate the plug-in hybrid. I haven't driven it personally, but it is cool that they are offering that, because I do think plug-in hybrids are, for right now, they're superior to going full EV. It's just a little bit more convenient to live with. However, it does cost a lot of money, and if you want it, go for it, because there is that, you know, pretty excellent acceleration and performance. If you're just buying it for fuel economy, I mean, it just depends on how much you drive. But really, what impresses me about these Audi products is just the amazing real-world fuel economy. I think this Q5 is rated to do like 23 in the city and 28 on the highway. I meet and exceed those numbers every time. That's one of the best things about VW and Audi products is the real world fuel economy. Even with slightly more aggressive driving, actively passing people, I'm still getting like over 23 mpgs, and out in the highway you can easily get 32 plus mpg. So if you drive it a little bit more mellow, you can easily exceed these numbers. This 45 model Premium Plus, it's going to be perfect for pretty much any family. This is quick enough, especially because it's turbocharged. They've done a good job tuning this engine, especially in collaboration with the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It's pretty quick to respond. It's smooth. That's the most important thing. Even though it's a dual clutch, it doesn't have any of the negatives associated with a dual clutch transmission. So I'm loving the smoothness in combination with the quickness of it. So all you have to do is just drive it in the normal mode. You don't even have to play with the dynamic modes or anything like that. Just drive it in normal and it's going to react perfectly to all your inputs. It's going to be the best balance for both reaction and for fuel economy, honestly. The auto stop start, also smooth. And we'll give it a quick U-turn here. Check that out. Tight U-turns because this car is obviously smaller in stature, so easy to place out on the road. And the turbocharged engine, it just surges off and it's so smooth. This and the BMW X3, I mean, both of these cars, they have the smoothest 4-cylinder engines that I have ever tested. I can make a few nitpicks here and there, and I certainly will nitpick it because after all, this is still a pretty expensive car, easily over $50,000 with options the way you want to have it spec'd. So don't worry, I will nitpick, but practically speaking, there's no cons. I'm going to talk about the handling and the ride quality here. So we have your 20-inch wheels and it still glides over bumps effortlessly. This is such a comfortable and smooth ride. It's also got nice double pane glass. There's virtually no wind noise here. Even at the highway speeds, it's extremely quiet. You just get some subtle tire hum and that's pretty much it. And in terms of its handling, it's very impressive, but once you start to push it really hard, it will tend to understeer, right? It's kind of expected, but Quattro all-wheel drive, that is standard for all the Q5s, and that's a great thing. We have your proper multi-link suspension in the front and the rear, 5-link suspension in the front and the rear. Some vehicles in this class, they'll use a strut-based suspension in the front. This, not so. That high-end suspension geometry, that's what enables this to have pretty much no compromise in terms of handling and ride quality. And that's with the 20-inch wheels. So you can actually get 18-inch wheels or even 19-inch wheels and it will ride like pure butter. But really, that's not necessary. When you take left-hand turns, right-hand turns, the car doesn't feel like it's flipping over. Your occupants, they remain neutral. Nobody's getting car sick in here. This car weighs about 4,079 pounds. Out on the highway, there's great stability. That's the point. I mean, everyday driving, there's confidence here. You can push it, you can drive it a little bit faster, you can take corners a little bit quicker than what you normally would in other cars, and it feels neutral, feels planted. That's what matters. Now when you drive like a total idiot, you have the wheel cocked and everything and you just floor it, yeah, of course, then it begins to understeer, then it doesn't feel quite as ideal. But again, nobody's doing that in the real world on an everyday basis. See, that was a big bump right there. Soaked it up really well. If you got the Sportback variant, which I don't recommend you getting because it looks good, I'm not gonna lie. It's got a nice sleek appearance to it. However, I think it adds around 35 to 40 pounds of weight, which that's not a big deal, but most importantly, you're sacrificing the amount of space inside of the cabin, like for the rear occupants mainly. And I did say that I was going to nitpick this because so far it's been doing everything so well, right? Well, one of the things I noticed, the brakes are a little bit soft. I wish that there's a little bit more braking performance. This vehicle does have 4,700 miles on it. It is a press car. It has been getting destroyed by all the journalists. So I do kind of forgive it for that. And besides, brakes are a pretty easy fix. Just put new pads on it and you should be good to go. More aggressive pads, I mean. But there is one thing missing here, and that is some character, some soul. This feels very distilled. It's very mechanical, it does everything so perfectly that you're like, really, that's what you have to complain about? But it's true. I mean, it just lacks a certain level of engagement. It just starts up, it does its job, it gets you to point A to point B, and pure comfort, pure luxury, prestige, speed. It's got all of that going on for it. However, you just feel like there's something missing here, that extra bit of communication, character, and maybe that doesn't matter in a class like this. To owners of vehicles like this, maybe it's not that important, but I just wanted to bring it up. Granted, the BMW X3 also has no character, so don't get me wrong, that vehicle also has zero character associated with it. In fact, this and the X3 pretty much feel almost identical when you drive it. One of the biggest advantages that this Q5 has over the X3, for most SUV shoppers anyway, is the fact that this driving position, this actually sits up high, or you get the feeling that you're sitting up higher in this. When you get inside of the X3, it just feels like you're driving a sedan, which some people might like that. So if that's what you prefer, then go ahead. But I'm just saying, for most SUV shoppers, they want that higher ride height feeling, and this has that. Also, the visibility is excellent. The mirrors do a great job. The rear view mirror, all of that. Very easy car to drive. It's smaller in stature, so it's just a naturally easy car to maneuver around town, to park, to fit in your garage. Has all these advantages going on, but if I'm going to nitpick it, a little bit lack of character, and maybe some new brake pads could do this vehicle some justice, just so you know. Anyway, that is a very detailed look at driving this new Q5. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space now, and I'll be sure to cover the trim levels and more of the options. I'll just have it on the screen here so you can read up on all the different options for each trim level. But anyway, let's transition over into that interior space now. Okay, now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and let's cover some of the trim levels here first before we get into the actual interior segment. In my opinion, I think just going with the Premium Plus model is more than enough for most people. I don't think it's really worth paying out for the Prestige models, especially for 2023. If you're ordering a brand new one, then you're going to be getting the Bang & Olufsen sound system as standard anyway, and they're even throwing in adaptive cruise control for literally all the models for the Q5. Audi is doing a great job of giving a lot of value in the base models and the mid-level models as well, so that's a great thing to see. And on the screen here, I'll have all the options and everything shown for you. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space. Here's another massive pro with the Q5, and that's going to be how solid this interior feels. There's nothing creaking and rattling in here. Everything is put together so well. When you open and close this door, it feels very solid. Another thing to note, this is also an IIHS top safety pick. I always love to see that, so you can be rest assured if you're putting a family in here, very safe car, no problems there. The seats, on the other hand, they're comfortable, but they're a little firm. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's like a firm mattress versus a plush mattress. Both are comfortable in their own ways. I actually really appreciate it on a long trip, on a long journey. This cabin space is not fatiguing. This is very comfortable. It's nice on your back. There's plenty of lumbar support here. Again, a very comfortable space. Over time, when you're leasing this car, 3-4 years into your lease, this is still going to feel fresh. This is still going to feel solid, and that's what I appreciate here. Or if you go to purchase one certified pre-owned, it's still going to feel solid. Now, before I mentioned that Bang & Olufsen sound system, they're giving it to you as standard in the Premium Plus models for 2023, but I will be honest, the Bang & Olufsen sound system, it's not like a massive upgrade over the non-Bang & Olufsen sound system Q5s. Even the standard system sounds very similar to this, so it's not a huge upgrade. But again, both good sound systems. The base model and this Bang & Olufsen, they both sound decent. It's clear, it's crisp, it's got enough bass. I do like this wood trimming on the door panel here. That's great. All the switches, they feel tight. They have a nice clicky sensation to it. We also have your double pane glass in the front, and that's one of the reasons why it is so quiet in here. We have two-way memory seats. They could offer you three-way memory seats, but it's fine. It's okay. Electronic mirror controls, one-touch automatic windows for all 4 windows. You have your trunk release here towards the bottom. The door pocket space, it can actually hold a slightly larger water bottle, so that's a great thing to see. You have your automatic headlights, you have the adaptive cruise control. I mean, that's pretty much standard for 2023 for all the models, but we have that here as well. You have your automatic high beams, automatic windshield wipers. Again, this is the $58,000 fully loaded Prestige model, so you expect it to have all the features. You have the heated steering wheel. Speaking of the steering wheel, it's nice, solid. It's a great thing to grip onto, and it's simple. It's elegant in here. It's more minimalistic, but everything is here. Your track selection, your volume knobs, it's all here. We have a completely digital gauge cluster. The screen looks crisp, it's easy to use. Same thing goes for the infotainment screen as well. Quick to respond, simple to use. In fact, the new Toyota/Lexus 14-inch displays pretty much look very similar to this Audi Q5 infotainment, where you have your menu selections towards the left here. It's just easy to understand. It's elegant the way it looks. And we also have your wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I really appreciate seeing that, but there's not really a good place to put your phone. Well, there is actually a wireless charging pad, but it's located on this sliding panel. If you want to have access to your wireless charging pad, then you actually have to not have access to your cup holder. So it's just kind of a silly and stupid design, but it is there for you. But there was also another space up here towards the front of the console, but it's not big enough to hold a phone. If you put your phone there, it's just going to slide out when you're driving. If they just made that front space here a little bit larger and put the wireless charging pad there, that would have been ideal. Kind of a missed opportunity. That's my only other gripe I have with this vehicle. But hey, I mean, it's kind of a good thing. You know, you're not distracted by your phone. So that's good anyway. You do have another small tray here. You can put your phone up vertical there if you want to. Because this Q5 is pretty much due for a refresh/redesign very soon here, we have the older setup, older in quotation marks. I still love this infotainment display. It's my favorite out of the Audi lineup. I prefer this to the dual screen setup that I tested in the Audi A6, because we still have here all of the physical controls and displays, the buttons, if you will. Again, like I mentioned, all the buttons, they feel like quality. They have a nice clicking sensation to it. And you have your own dedicated HVAC controls and settings and display right here. You also have your heated and cooled seats here, and the cooled seats do work pretty well. You have your physical volume knob here as well. You also have these paddle shifters, which they could have been a slightly nicer material. It's just a plastic paddle, but honestly, I don't even use the paddle shifters in this car. It's just totally not necessary. Because this is the Prestige model, we also have here a massive panoramic sunroof, which I think many people will like and appreciate. We have a nice bezel-less mirror, a rear view mirror, I mean. And other things to note, the center armrest, a little bit on the smaller side. That's the other thing. So yeah, that's kind of a con, honestly. You know, the storage space in this Audi Q5, it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more petite. Something to keep in mind. It's not a big deal, but it's just something I noticed. Fortunately, the glove box is massive, so that's good. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the rear seats now, because this is a complaint that some people have, is the Q5 is a little bit smaller, but I'll be honest, it's literally the same size as the BMW X3. In my opinion, from my experience with this car, it has pretty much the same amount of leg room. And because we have this fully loaded Prestige here, we also have manual sunshades in the rear, which is great if you have small children or babies or something back there. Oh, and sorry, one other thing I forgot to mention. Because this is the fully loaded model, we also have your heated and cooled cup holders here. They're a little bit small, the cup holders in the front, but I just wanted to mention that to you. That is another feature that you get here. But anyway, back to the rear seats. The seats are still very comfortable. Occupants should not have an issue sitting back there on a long journey. This is a very comfortable and satisfying vehicle to travel around in. You have your own climate control back there, and you also have heated seats back there as well. But I will say it's primarily best for 4 adults. That's because the center seat in the rear, it's not very spacious, because you have that massive transmission tunnel in the middle that really gets in your way. So it's really best for 2 adults in the back. And keep in mind, I am 5'11", so even with my seat setting, I have a very decent amount of space in that rear seat. And also, it's easy to get in and out of this car because it's a slightly more raised up vehicle, right? Now let's move on to the trunk space. Trunk is also decent for a vehicle of this size and stature. It's very good. I think this overall car is about 184 inches long, and the trunk is also decent. You also have a spare tire back there as well. It's kind of one of those skinny spares, but regardless, you have it. And it's rather easy to put the seats down in this vehicle. You just flip the 2 levers and the seats pop down right away. Easy to put them back up as well. So I think storage and everything, I think this is a nice little package for most families. And with that, we can transition over into the conclusion segment now, starting with some of the competitors. Obviously, I mentioned things like the BMW X3. I'm not going to lie, the X3 is literally identical almost with this Q5. They drive pretty much the same, they feel the same. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of prefer the Q5 over the X3. I just like this interior space a little bit more than the X3, but don't get me wrong, the BMW is still very good. Infotainment is great. Same nice, smooth 4-cylinder engines. I think the BMW might be a little bit quicker than this, but that's negligible. It's not really even worth mentioning. Both are very comfortable. Both offer about the same amount of space. The main thing with the BMW is you sit a little bit lower in that. Some people might like that. Some people might hate that. That's going to be up to you. And obviously the looks of both, that's also subjective. That's going to be on you as well. I think both the X3 and the Q5, it's superior to the Mercedes GLC because the Mercedes GLC engine, it doesn't feel that smooth. I feel like it rattles a little bit too much, but I did like the way the GLC looks. In fact, it's my most favorite looking amongst this trio, so something to keep in mind there. Also, the Mercedes GLC interior feels a little bit more chintzy and cheaper. That's another thing I noticed. It tends to creak and rattle a little bit more than the BMW and this Audi Q5. So that's the competitors. Now I'll talk about how we can save some money on these Q5s. All right, I did partner up with a company known as AutoCompanion. They are a broker, a leasing broker, but you don't have to lease the car to take advantage of these deals or these discounts. But AutoCompanion, essentially, they partner up with a lot of dealerships in the Washington, D.C. area. They do ship nationwide, but you have to pay for that shipping, so keep that in mind. But you can always just pick up the vehicle at Washington, D.C. as well. They partner with these dealerships, and here's the thing you have to keep in mind. To take advantage of a lot of these deals, most likely you will have to build the vehicle, because obviously we know that there is a chip shortage and there's a car shortage and all that stuff. Most likely you will have to build, and the biggest con with that is for Audi there's like a 6 to 8 month waiting period, unless you get lucky and there happens to be something on the dealership lot during the time of your inquiry. If there is, then go ahead, you can take advantage of that. But there is a broker fee. It's about $500, but you can take $50 off if you sign up with my link in the description box. Around $450 broker fee, but you're getting a lot of money off on this vehicle. Pretty much the best luxury car deal out there right now, along with the Lexus RX. Again, sign up if you want to. I don't care. I just thought I would let you know about it, because if you can save money, great. If you don't want to, fine. Just keep it in your back pocket. Just keep the knowledge in your back pocket, because at least now with this, you know that these cars, it's obtainable at least. This is not something that you have to put on a pedestal. It's not like it's impossible for a normal person to afford this. So if you're willing to wait, if you're willing to wait for your perfect Q5/SQ5, that's definitely a way to save money on it. I'll leave all that information down in the description box so you can inquire about it, text them about it, have fun with that. But for the most part, great car. I do like this Q5. Lacks a little bit of character, but honestly, if you want character, get the SQ5. Pay up for that. It is worth getting. For most families, I think this is going to do it. I think the real world fuel economy, that's what's most impressive about this, along with the solid interior space, the amount of standard features that they give you. Like pretty much all the safety features are standard. Blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, all that stuff, that's standard. Very safe car, very easy car to drive. I think it's spacious enough for most people, certainly class competitive. So with all that established, that's my full review on this Audi Q5. I'll have the SQ5 review on the end screen here, so check that out and I will see you there.